Power 96, we're back here live from the Pizza Ranch. I think I did get it fixed. We use this program to feed back into our station, and for some reason I think it was picking up the laptop, so that's why you could hear me talking in between. That makes sense. I just was talking to Mark Calderon, and he said he did not hear me the last little bit, so maybe we got it fixed. We'll see what happens. But anywho, we're here now live on Tiger Sports Saturday with our weekly fishing report from Dylan Thompson, Fishing with Dylan. Dylan, how's it going today?
I'm good, Dave. How are you?
You know, I'm good. We actually, last night I was sitting over at my buddy's house, and we got talking about getting the poles ready and stuff like that. And I seen you had put a picture this week on Facebook that most people, when you think spring, you know, you'll think this, that, but when you have a fishing rod in the corner of your bedroom, that's your sign for...
That was all Nicole. I picked up a couple new rods at the Northwest Sports Show a couple weeks ago, and had to have a rod warranted. So St. Croix took care of that really quickly. I think I put the order in on a Sunday, and the rod was there Tuesday afternoon.
Nice.
So bummer that I had to deal with that, but they made it a really painless process to get it replaced. So thanks, St. Croix. And then I ordered one other kind of rod. I'm trying to tinker with some different things this year and see what I like, and maybe we'll hone it into one brand at some point. But when you're on a budget, you got to take what you can get, right?
You're not rolling with the ugly sticks or the Zebcos?
No, not anymore. There's still a few around in the house, whatever, but no, those are not my primary go-tos anymore. So obviously they all showed up around the same time, so I just put the sleeves on them and set them in the bedroom, knowing I was planning on getting the boat out this week, and she threw me right under the bus. Here's your sign of spring, fishing poles in the bedroom.
Yeah.
So it was a funny bit. I got a kick out of it myself, but yeah.
So we're going to get into a little bit of maybe what's going on around the area. Of course, you've already been out. You were at the river yesterday. But let's talk about getting ready to fish. And are you one of those guys that every year you suggest to put new line on your rods?
If you fish a lot, then yes. And if you have mono, you're probably going to want to swap it because it'll coil and get some memory. My braid rods, you know, depending on how hard I am on everything throughout the season, that stuff will last a long time. And braid's a little spendier, so one of my braid tricks is, if you want to swap it, I will string it off of one reel, tie it onto the next reel, and reel it backwards, essentially, off of the original reel, and then you've got nice fresh stuff on the other side from the unused end, right? So you can stretch that out a little longer. It's one of those sneaky little tricks, because some of that stuff gets to be approaching $20 a spool now.
It's
right?
not as cheap. I mean, you can still get the cheap stuff, but like I said, it's one of those, especially like here in town, you can get a really cheap line, and if that's all you're going to try to do is, you know, little crappie, sunfish, but as soon as you snag onto like a northern, or a northern grabs onto your sunny, your line's just going to snap in a heartbeat. So I know we've went the last few years and got you know, some different stuff. What do you feel about colors? Is there a specific colored
line?
Yeah, the colored line. Do you think that's actually good, bad?
So I have some theories on that.
Okay.
I want to say one more thing about the braid swap, though. When I'm doing that, I will back my spool like 2/3 full of mono, and then tie the braid onto the mono with like a uni knot, and then you're using like maybe a really long cast length of braid versus spooling the entire thing on there.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You know, good way to save a few extra bucks. My idea with colored line, if you're using it for jigging, I really like really bright lines, because a lot of times the fish will pick it up and you won't necessarily feel it in the rod, but you'll see the line start to move, right? For certain techniques, if you've got slack line in it at any point, or the line will jump at mid-fall, right? Because the fish comes up behind it and pushes it forward, it doesn't necessarily pull away, but you'll be able to see that line move if something out of the ordinary happens, and that can help you get more bites. So that's definitely a theory I subscribe to. And then if you're in really clear water where the color may offend a fish, just tie a long fluorocarbon leader on there. Or put a swivel in between, because the fluorocarbon's invisible underwater, and fluorocarbon is very abrasion resistant. So in your instance, like you said with the pike, that can make that last a little longer or give you a teeny bit of insurance. There's not much that can really stand up to a mouthful of pike teeth. But,
No.
you know.
No, that is true. Okay, so I know I have not restrung my line for like 2 years.
Okay.
You suggest that I restring it?
Yeah.
Okay, I will restring.
Fun, buddy.
I didn't get it out at all last year.
Well, then maybe you got a bonus here and there if you didn't use it last year. Like I said, if it's
I don't want to lose that trophy fish just because I didn't restring my line.
Well, and that's... I fished with a guy on the National Walleye Tour, and part of being his travel buddy practice partner, we restrung all of his trolling rods the night before every derby. So,
wow.
like... and not the whole spool, we'd take like 500 feet off and tie fresh line on and reel it back in so you had fresh line on the business end. But, you know, he has a deal with a line maker and they ship him giant spools. So he's in a little bit different program.
Yeah.
But if you got $100,000 on the line, don't let a $5 respooling of line stand in your way of that,
No.
right? Wouldn't that be the biggest bummer? Reeling in that 8-pounder and you didn't change your line and crack, there she goes.
I know the one year, and this is when I started really getting into maybe a little bit a better line. We went out and it was just a crappy line that came with it, and I threw the rod out, and you could just see the kinks and whatever.
Yep.
It's like, oh, this is, whatever.
Or it all just coils up into a big wind knot like immediately.
Yeah, that's like I said, that tends to happen. But let's get into a little bit of the local stuff going on. Of course, I think it was the 27th, Malepsy said that officially the ice is now off the lake.
Yep.
We've seen actually a few boats out and about right now.
Yeah, there's a few tinkering around.
But once again, you got to have your new fishing license, which we've talked about that. It's pretty easy now. If you don't want to go anywhere, you can even do it online. But right now, the only things that's open is going to be more of your panfish.
Panfish, yes.
So if you do snag on like a bass or a walleye or a northern, get rid of it immediately.
Catch, photo, release.
Yeah.
Send her right back in. I mean, handle it quickly, take a minute, pop the hook out, and if you want to do the selfie thing, I'm cool with that. But get that fish back in the water right away. Don't
so let's talk, and I don't know, and like I said, this is where I'm going to ask you. DNR comes around. Can you practice, or can you try to catch walleye in northern right now? Or you're only supposed to be going for...
You're not supposed to be targeting fish out of season.
So if you have a spoon on your line...
They're going to ask you some questions.
Okay.
The eyebrow will get raised.
So don't
what
be...
What are you doing, bud?
Yeah, don't be out there...
yeah, if you got a 3/4 ounce spoon, you try to tell a guy you're casting for crappies, you're probably going to have a stern conversation.
Conversation on that. I don't know, that was one of the questions that I just was like, well... As long as you're not keeping them, I'm like, I don't think so. I think it's... You're
not supposed to. But, a lot of crappie or perch baits right now, pike and walleyes will eat those.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you're, out there with your 1/8 ounce jig and a white twister tail and you're targeting crappies, they can't say anything then.
Well, even, because I think the one year we got talking about it, and crappies will even hit on little wraps.
Yes.
And... someone had said, well, no, you're trying for... No, they'll go on wraps.
That's a funny thing that got brought up. I was just talking to somebody about that the other day, how a lot of times in the spring, pre-spawn, a lot of guys will use like a number 7 original floating Rapala to target crappies. You get that on a nice, light stick, and man, they hit it pretty hard. Like, it's impressive. So, no, that is a valid crappie presentation. Small crankbaits are fantastic. So yeah, don't let anybody tell you crappie won't eat that.
Yeah,
Crappies eat those all the time, so why wouldn't they eat a small Rapala? Right?
Lott and I have a story on that. We won't get into that today, but I never thought they'd go after wraps, and sure as heck they do. So let's talk a little bit. What are you hearing around the area right now?
So the panfish bite, the last time I was here, we talked about how the panfish will move into the shallow stuff in the spring. That is starting to go on. Water temps are a little warmer than I figured they'd be right now.
80-degree day will help.
Yeah, that got it going. But even the river yesterday, when we got on there, was 46 degrees surface temp, which, I mean, that's, I'd venture to say, hot for this time of year. You'd expect low 40s at best, but we've had some warm weather lately, and that's pushing it up a little bit. So, yeah, I'd expect to see similar results on local lakes, and that's what's going to get those bugs emerging from the mud. And, you know, I mentioned secluded bays on the north ends of things, because, you know, the way the sun comes up, that gets the most temp, and that gets the bugs and weed growth going first, and that's where everything's going to be trying to be, is in those shallow bays with the first bit of emerging weeds and first bug hatches, and that's where the fish are going to try to be.
I've seen the last few days, just kind of driving around the lake, a lot of people out there, and they're working like left to right along the shores.
Yep.
Now, is that something that they're just looking to see maybe if they're traveling, or because normally you don't get to do that, especially when we get in the summer. You can't go left to right because you're stuck with like 30 other fisher people.
Right.
But is that something a lot of people will do? Kind of go left and right on the shore?
Walking along the shore?
Yeah, and just kept
absolutely.
going, you know, whatever.
You're good. If you're not catching fish, don't just stand there all day. I mean,
yeah, I didn't know as far as like attracting and, you know, because part of that too is you're trying to attract, you know, when you are casting out and stuff.
Yeah.
So I didn't know how that would work when, you know, you keep doing that. But of course, yeah, I mean, it's no different than ice fishing. You don't sit in one spot if you're not catching.
Right.
Unless you have your big house, then you're not moving it.
Right.
Normally.
You know, and go out, get on the shoreline. If you think there's an area that might have some weeds and soft bottom bugs coming out of it, you know, I would walk around the whole bay until you potentially target something, right? Don't stand there and, you know, for 6 hours and cast in the same, you know, 30-degree radius you got. If there's nothing there in a half hour, I'd walk 40 yards down the shore and start checking again.
See if I'm there. Yep. So you were on the river yesterday.
Yes, sir.
I've seen some pictures. Getting some pretty nice fish over there right now. Nothing big.
No, nothing big. We went in a 2-boat pack, and the other boat did get 125, which is getting there. But, you know, this time of year in the river, you're really looking for the big bigs, you know, 27 plus. And the river was an absolute madhouse. We launched at Bay Point, and anybody that's familiar with the river will know what I'm talking about, but that's a really nice landing in the city of Red Wing. And you go out there, and then you can go north up to the dam, past Everett's resort. They have bait and everything there if you need anything when you get there. But you come around the corner from Everett's, and the whole channel was packed. People doing everything from shore to shore. And then the closer you got to the dam, the tighter it got. There were hundreds of boats in a half-mile stretch. It was pretty wild.
Yeah, that's crazy. Well, I mean, once again, you know, people have talked about that last few years, and I know we had kind of stirred up some controversy here too about, you know, you're going to bring a bunch of people. It's not just us it's everybody talks.
Yeah.
They're going to know where fish are biting, and that's one of those things. I don't know if it's just people are just itching to get out, and you know it's out there. You can do whatever. I shouldn't say you can do whatever you want out there. I mean, there's still limits and things like that.
There are regulations.
But I mean, you get to go out and basically just fish like you normally would, you know, because we don't get to, because when's opener here now in Minnesota?
I believe this year it's the 10th or 11th.
Okay. So, like
Mother's
I said,
Day.
it is Mother.
Set your clock by that. Thanks, DNR.
Yeah. That's you know, and some mothers appreciate the guys being gone. Others, not so much.
Yep.
You know, but yeah, maybe I don't know who sets Mother's Day. That's
it has to do with something in the calendar and the DNR and photo period and the fish spawning cycle and
can't we change Mother's Day? Who do we petition to change Mother's Day like a week later?
You look into that and let me know. Or a week earlier.
Week earlier too, yeah. We're going to take another break here real quick. We'll be right back. We got more from Fishing with Dylan here right after this. All right, and now we're back again, another segment here with Fishing with Dylan. Dylan, of course, you've been kind of busy, not only with just watching everything with the fish and stuff, but you're kind of our outdoor guru as well. And I know we kind of talked Even on Facebook, I'd put that. What are you really seeing out there right now in the outdoor world?
So I think, God, has it been 3 weeks since I was here last? 2 weeks ago, I was at the Northwest Sports Show. Last weekend, Teddy qualified for the NYWA Youth Regional Tournament,
Yep.
which is super cool. He ended up having a couple tough draws and didn't get super far through the bracket, but that kid always leaves it all on the mat, so I'm super proud of him for that. But we had a little fiasco the morning of during weigh-in. He was registered for 88 pounds, and there's no leeway in that at this tournament. You have to be 88 flat or below. And we were super careful, monitored him all week. You know, he was under. Drove over to Wyndham, had dinner, made him eat grilled chicken and veggies, monitored his fluid intake that night. We went swimming for a couple hours at the hotel. So we roll in there thinking this is going to be a snap, right? Well, kid steps on the scale and he's 88.5, right? And a half pound is plenty for a kid that size to try to burn off. So threw him in every pair of sweatpants we had and told him to start jogging, right? And there was a Runnings close by. Ted has long hair. I said, I'm going to go buy a clipper, and if you're a quarter pound off, you're getting sheared, boyo. And he says, oh, well, if that's what we got to do. So he starts jogging. I ran to the Runnings, grabbed the clipper, got back. He was 88.2 after running for about 30 minutes. Okay, so we're close. Found him a smaller singlet and dropped his drawers, and 88 flat. We made it. No
Nice.
shear for Ted. So mother was riddled with anxiety. Because what if he doesn't make it? Then we don't get to do nothing. But all's well. He wrestled hard.
Well, that's good.
Yeah,
and
it was fun.
I did see quite a few wrestlers up there. Do you know how many kids wrestled up there that weekend?
There was a bunch, probably a dozen from Albert Lee. We ended up staying. We were close to the end by the time Ted had his second match. So we hung out and watched the last couple kids go. And I think a handful qualified for state, which is going on as we speak in Rochester. So I think the older kids wrestled last night, and one of our local kids won his bracket. So he's the state champ for his weight.
Nice. And I haven't got any reports on that yet, so that's pretty cool. I'll have to double check all that here. I'm sure it'll be out on Facebook. Someone will post it on Facebook.
Yeah. So kudos to him for grinding it out. And then beyond that, you asked about some local happenings with the wildlife and stuff. We're starting to see a lot of the migrating waterfowl come back, like the Canada geese and ducks and stuff. And this is a really fun time of year down here because with the lakes up north being frozen still, a lot of the diver ducks don't move the whole way up. And you get to see some ducks that aren't typical for this area, like canvasbacks, bluebills, ringnecks, things of that nature. Really pretty birds that you don't always have an opportunity to check out. So, make a lap around the lakes, look for those things. Even if you drive across Albert Lee Lake on the interstate, they like to be in that area, and you get a shot to see some waterfowl that aren't typically making homes here for the summer.
And which is crazy because the interstate's so loud. Even like the swallows and things like that. It's like you'd think they gotta be annoyed with that the semi traffic and things like that. They love it. It must be some kind of thing that just kind of hovers them. But you said you had seen a bird that you normally don't see around here. What was that one again? It was
a kingfisher.
Kingfisher.
So they're a little bird, maybe a little bigger than a robin, but they have a white chest and like a bluish gray back, and long pointed beak and a little puff on its head similar to a cardinal, and they'll run up and down small creeks eating minnows and stuff. It's neat to watch them do their thing. Pardon me. And we'll see other birds coming back in the very near future. Obviously there's tons of robins around, but orioles, some of the finches and other small birds like that. So if you're interested in checking out some birds, do a little research on what they like to eat. Different nuts and suet
Better
picks.
go to the Albert Lee Seed House and Garden Center.
Yeah, they've got all that stuff.
They'll be able to hook you up. And I know, like I said, I'm not big into birds, but both my parents were, and we always had to go out there and get, because this type of bird will eat this. My dad used to have like 5 different bird feeders out in the yard.
Oh yeah, we
you
do.
know, you guys do too.
Absolutely.
And so all different things. So they don't always eat the same thing. So if you want to get different types of birds, yeah, you definitely need to get the different types of seed and feed and
thistle
things like
seeds
yeah.
and nut mix, and Orioles will eat out of hummingbird feeders, or you can split an orange in half and lay that out in an elevated position. And those birds are so pretty this time of year because it's their mating season. They got to look their best, right? They got their date clothes on. But they look really sharp and vibrant, and it's a lot of fun to watch them when they're doing that. I might even set a little camera out on one of the feeders this year and see if we can't get some up-close footage. That sounds like an absolute gas to me, but I'm a bit of a geek. So.
Well, no, and I know we have a lot of people that around this area that just love that, and you know, let's just be honest here. The robins are back, and they're a pretty bird, but you know when they show up, what is it? It snows 3 times.
It snows 3 times.
3 times on their back. We've already had 2.
I think it was 3.
Was it 3? We're supposed to get like an inch maybe tonight or tomorrow.
Some people said they saw some before that first little blizzard. Somebody said blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
They're around. That's a very good sign that spring is winding its way out and warmer weather is coming, right?
Yeah. I always, whenever I hear that, I'm like, oh, it means we're going to have another snowstorm at some point, whatever. But what birds do you really, is like your favorite bird? You're trying to get them in your yard?
Orioles.
Orioles?
Baltimore Orioles for sure. And byproduct of targeting the Baltimore Orioles, we've had some orchard Orioles in the yard too. There's a little bit different coloration, redder, not as vibrant or orange as the Baltimores, but still a really neat bird to see. And then, you know, what ends up happening is you'll see a bird you don't recognize, and you start thumbing through a bird ID or Googling, like, hey, what bird has these colors, right? And it'll be amazing the stuff you get to see. We've seen indigo buntings in the yard, scarlet tanagers, all kinds of cool stuff that you'd never even give a second thought to most times, but you start doing the feeder thing and it's neat what ends up showing up.
I know my favorite bird to always kind of see, and my dad, he had, I don't know what kind of feed it was, but blue jays.
Sure.
I always liked, you know, and they're just such, you don't see them a lot, you know. Well, I don't see them a lot. You probably do.
You can see them a lot, and they're kind of obnoxious.
Well,
they're like a little mini turkey. They're loud and rowdy and want to cause trouble with everybody, right?
Yeah.
Like a gang of rowdy teenagers.
Oh, and that's just it. You get one of those in your yard, they will eat anything, pretty much, from what I've heard. And yeah, I've always liked looking at bluebirds. I don't know. It reminds me of the Big Bang Theory episode when he's got that big bluebird there. Of course, cardinals. Everybody likes looking at cardinals.
Yep.
Of course, you know, there's always a special meaning to cardinals with a lot of people. But
yep.
What have you noticed so far this year about like bald eagles?
On the river yesterday, there was tons of them coming back, flying around, doing their thing, dive bombing different stretches of river. There's quite a few of them around here too. The state park and along the Shell Rock are great places if you want to see a bald eagle. Yeah, very majestic, beautiful birds. And, you know, thinking back to, was it the late 70s? They're almost gone.
Yeah.
Right? And now the number of them around is, yeah, you can hardly not see one.
Have you ever been over, is it Wabasha that has the National Eagle Center?
Yes, I've not been there.
Yeah. I know when they had the babies here a few years ago or whatever, you know, they had the camp.
Big deal.
You know, and yeah, like I said, that's another bird that we actually went down, our family vacation went to, it was Louisville, and they have a bald eagle there. They just let go everywhere.
Yeah?
He just knows that's his home.
Sure.
He flies throughout the whole zoo. It's crazy. But he always comes back because he knows he gets a steady food and you know, whatever, things like that. So we got a few more minutes here. What's going on? I wanted to talk to you about, you know, the youth with the early anglers. Got anything coming up really with them coming up?
I don't remember the dates off the top of my head, but their tournament season, I believe, starts at the end of the month with the Carpapalooza. And for that tournament, we do, in order to enter that tournament, you have to fill a bag with garbage, right? And post that into our scoring system, and that's how you get your entry into the tournament. So a fun way to encourage some spring cleaning on our local waterways and get the kids involved in trying to target some different species. So that's a fun one that everybody looks forward to. And then beyond that, as we get into early May, there's a crappie tournament, an opener tournament, And then the last couple years, we've been doing a traveling bass tournament with Rosemount High School. And we take turns going back and forth. And whoever wins each year gets to take the trophy back to their home base or whatever, so to speak. So that's a really fun one. And then later in May is the Arcadian Bank Big Bass Shootout, I think we call it. That one's always a good time. Bass are around and feeding pretty regularly at that time, so it's a really awesome time to have that tournament. So yeah, that's a great one. Then the next few weeks for the Angler Club, so you'll start seeing them kids running around in their jerseys and trying to hook all the fish they can.
Yeah, and what's the age on that again?
12 through senior.
12 through senior. So if you have any kids that are looking to get out, go ahead and reach Dylan. You can even go to the Fishing with Dylan Facebook page. He'll hook you up and get you over there with that. One quick thing, do you know much about turtles?
I am not a great turtle mind.
Okay, that's one thing
I'm scared of snapping turtles.
Oh, and they're
a worthy adversary, Dave.
There's a lot of them.
There's a lot of them.
And I know we ended up snagging onto a couple here. We were catfishing a few years ago now. I've never seen one on the line, but Lon and I each had one on our line.
Oh, good.
Same time. Like, really?
Yeah.
But we didn't know what the season was. We were there with Tino Flores. He's like, I'll eat it. I'll take and cook and stuff. Yeah. But we didn't know what the season was.
Sure.
So we'll get into a little bit more with that as well. But Dylan, any one big hint or one big how do you want to say it? One hint. Is there any hints or tips you have this week, real quick?
I feel like we kind of already talked about it with the panfish and the shallows. That's going to be your best opportunity in this area right now. And you can do it from shore. You can do it from a boat. Great way to get out and target some of our local fish. Yeah, that's the best thing I got going right now. I guess one more thing, the turkeys are starting to do their thing.
Yes, they are. I know Jerry, he says that he can't even sleep anymore, sleep in, because those turkeys are nuts in the morning.
Yes, and if you're driving past an open field, don't get in a wreck, right? But glance over. They're so fun to see. They look like a bunch of satellite dishes stacked out in the middle of the field with their fans up and wandering around pecking at each other. Those are neat birds, and that season's coming up. We'll talk a little more final thoughts, I think, next week as we really close in on turkey opener. A couple more tips and tricks for that. I got a couple buddies that are just getting into turkey hunting for the first time, and they've been asking me questions, so that's brought some stuff up that might be worth discussing as we approach the turkey opener.
Sounds good. Well, that was Fishing with Dylan Report. This has been a Tiger Sports Saturday, live from Pizza Ranch, brought to you by Pizza Ranch, Americana Insurance, and the Awesome Bruins. Dylan, thank you for coming out today. Thanks to everybody for spending a little bit of time with us today. And with that, we'll get you into some more classic rock here on Power 96.
Thanks, Dave.